Greetings and welcome to The Thirsty Mage, the podcast that has run out of hard drive space on all of the video game platforms. Welcome to the podcast, I'm David Lloyd, and in this episode we continue to trudge through more RPGs than we could ever finish in one lifetime. We're continuing to build up the libraries that I'm sure our great-great-grandchildren will one day get to enjoy generations after, my backlog at this point is a multi-generational task, so, it's up to them to continue on the legacy as long as all these platforms haven't deregistered all the games. But here with me on this episode, fresh off a game where he plays through multi-generation of heroes, it's Jordan Rudick.
Yeah, I was going to say, you must have planned out that introduction to lead into Romancing SaGa 2, Revenge of the Seven, because, it's such a cool mechanic. I absolutely loved that game. But yeah, can't think about it too much. Can't finish it and just sit down for a week and be like, oh, I'm just basking in the glory of having finished a game, because there's the next one to move on to right away. So we've got a chance to talk about that game. You've got a new game to talk about. I've got a few Dragon Age Veilguard impressions to share. I've only played a few hours, but I do have thoughts on it for sure. So yeah, I mean, the train doesn't slow down. It only stops for a minute for a couple of things to get off and new games to pop on, and that's where we're here. That's where we're at right now.
Just long enough to record a podcast.
Yes, exactly. And then
that's the only break. It's the only break between games is to talk about that game on a podcast for an hour and then forget it ever happened.
Things slow down for a minute. While the train is moving, you got to jump back on with your new game. Right. It's the only way you're gonna get through to the end of the year.
It reminds me. I just watched. It was I guess it was a Fail Army YouTube video where it's this big traffic jam, and this teen jumps out to go to the bathroom in the woods, and then the car is driving away, and he's just trying to run back up to the car. Well, that's how it feels like with all these games. It's just all these games on this big highway, and you're just trying to run to catch up.
I thought you were going to go for the metaphor of a multi-car pileup on a freeway, right? The cars just keep smashing into each other. And you're trying to
that works too.
Share your impressions, but the next car comes in and derails everything. Yeah, that's
it's
how
that
it feels.
The moment of rubbernecking when you're going past an accident and everyone slows down for that few seconds just to see what's going on, and then all of a sudden you see the traffic jam let up right after.
Yes, that's perfect. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, I mean that's literally my email inbox. Was I check to see new codes coming in for games, and I just have to be we can't we don't have, I don't. I try to email PR teams back or developers, publishers back. I'm like, hey, we would love to cover this. We just don't have the bandwidth. We don't have the people to throw at all these games, and we try to cover as much as we can. But man, again, in a year filled with multi-dozen hour RPGs, 30, 40, 50 hour games, the room or the capacity to review the 1, 2, 3, 4 hour games just isn't there. And I feel bad this year to have to just to say no. And there might be follow-up emails hey, just seeing if you got the code. I'm yeah, we got it, but I just can't right now. Maybe in the beginning of next year, there'll be some kind of a lull. But then Nintendo drops an announcement for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition coming in March. Come on, there's never the train again never stops, never really slows down. It just keeps on rolling with games that I feel very compelled to play. I'm excited about that. I know some other folks aren't as much. I loved that game on Wii U. I think it was a gem on that system, and I played that 100 hours at least of that one. I didn't see half of it, so I'm excited about that.
Well, I discovered on if you at how long to beat that you can just put your Steam ID in. You don't need to log in or anything. You just put
Oh, that's
your ID
cool.
in,
Okay, yeah.
and then it'll show you a list of all the games that you own. It'll show the number of the how long to beat number, like what they average or whatever, and then it shows how many hours you've played in it.
Mm,
And at the top of the list, I was, I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh, it's pretty neat. I played, this many hours and this many hours. And then by the time I got to the bottom where I haven't played games, it just mostly showed me a list of all the games I intended to play that I haven't gotten around to yet and how many hours it would take to beat them. And then I just
mm.
got depressed.
Yeah, that calculation is never an enjoyable one to
No.
have happen in front of you. That's for sure.
Looking at
I
it
mean,
like, okay, I'll be about 55 by the time I finish this stuff.
I may have told this story before, but that's why I stopped playing League of Legends online multiplayer game, because I went to a site that tells like I don't think on your account it was there, but I found a website where you put in like your League of Legends ID, your player ID, and it tells you how many hours you've played. And when I calculated hours to like weeks and months, and
Oh,
like this is just so much of my life has been
yeah.
spent in this game, like queuing up, playing the games, whatever. I can't. I like installed it immediately. I'm like, this is not a good tool. This is not a good website to
No.
continue allow people to want to keep playing. So yeah,
Well, that's why I
sometimes
laughed at
learning that stuff's not great.
near the top of my list of hours played was Town of Salem, which is this like it's kind of like the mafia style game, I guess, where it's just
Okay.
there's like a group of 12 people go in, and there's I think there was like a godfather and then uh two underlings, and they're trying to like it's like the murder mystery game where like everybody goes to bed at night and then you pick one townsperson to kill and then you come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. No. Well.
Yeah, and there's like a werewolf and something else I don't know, and then yeah, there's like a sheriff and stuff. And anyway, that it's like just that basically, but with like this Town of Salem sort of skin to it or whatever. And I had played 60 hours of it, and it's funny because I remember this was like years ago. This is a 10-year-old, 12-year-old game or whatever. But I remember that time in my life where I just like, oh, I got a spare, hour. I'll play a few rounds of this, or and then I'm thinking like, man, 60 hours in this game, like what
That
a waste.
no one's heard of, like you barely
Yeah,
remember it. Yeah, like but no,
yeah,
I put 60
and
hours
and the
in.
and the company got hacked back in the day, and whatever information I had given them was on the dark web now. So
Of course, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's the real Town of Salem. There,
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
you're the one who got
the mafia
selected.
got me. Yeah,
Yes, yeah,
yeah.
very good.
Well, I guess a good time to jump into our first game that we kind of hinted at the beginning, which is Romancing SaGa. I think I say romancing weird. Romancing
No,
SaGa
I
2.
got called out for pronouncing it that way, but I don't
Oh,
care.
yeah.
It's our podcast; we're allowed to say it like that
Yeah,
now. And I
that's right.
tried in the video, like in the original video, that's how I was pronouncing it, and people, Romancing Saga 3, I think people were making fun of, like, and then I tried to like go a little bit closer to romancing, and I still hate saying it that way, but I
Yeah,
kind of split the difference with the my more recent video review for
yeah.
Revenge of the Seven. But
I just go with complete inconsistency. I'll just say whatever,
sure,
comes out of my mouth. But
hey,
yeah,
you know what we're talking about here, right?
that's right.
Like,
We're talking about Revenge of the Seven.
yeah,
Yeah, I think we did. I remember we did a preview of it because there was a demo that was out, and I remember discussing it then. But I don't think since then. You've talked. I know you talked about it a bit on one of the episodes, but you couldn't really say too many because it was under embargo at the time.
that's
So
right. Yeah, so
yeah,
believe it was part when I did my PAX preview, or right. I talked about the three big RPGs I played at Square Enix, amongst some of the other games I saw at the show too. This was one where I'm like, oh, I remember telling everybody and feeling like I'm just blown away by this game. Like I think it's got tons of potential. I'm super excited about it. I did like a 180 in terms of how much I was anticipating this game. Um, I would have said, Dragon Quest 3 and Fantasian would definitely be of those three games would definitely be ones that would put higher up on my list. But yeah, I did the flip there, and Romancing Saga 2 ended up becoming my game of the show, and then just one I was super excited about. So when I finally got the review code and got into it, I was really pleasantly surprised to see that, yeah, I just kept living up to my expectations, my hype for it. Just to clarify, this is going to be spoiler free. We maybe down the line we'll do like a spoiler filled one. But yeah, no major story spoilers here, so folks can stick around. I want to focus more on just the mechanics in the world and how things kind of work. So yeah, just everybody knows that up front. Romancing Saga 2, the premise, for those who aren't aware, is that you are playing a lineage. You are playing a succession of emperors or rulers that once one passes, and sometimes just kind of randomly in the game, a time skip will occur, and you'll have to choose a new emperor. Or if you fall in battle and your emperor is defeated and you don't go back to a previous save, then you'll start over again with again another new emperor, and then you choose like a new kind of set of heroes to form a party. And that's kind of the main hook of the game is this lineage system where your skills, traits, stat increases, those kind of carry forward with you. So that includes your maximum HP and mana points. I think they call them BP or SP in this game. It's been a couple of weeks since I played it. Those go up, those stay with you. You level up weapon types per character, so you might level up your sword skill, your spear, bow and arrow, and those go up, and then that sticks with you too, and you become more proficient at those weapons, do more damage, and maybe able to learn more skills with them with those stats going up. Also, part of the lineage system is that your kingdom is being built out as well. So you are opening up like for example, one of the first things you open up is a blacksmith, basically a smithy, and that's where you research new weapons that you can purchase or armor. There's a lot of variety there. As you unlock kind of more basic weapons and armor, you get opportunities to get more advanced ones. Eventually, you open up other parts of the kingdom as well that increase the gold that you earn. So you don't traditionally earn gold in battle where it's like listed at the end how much gold you get. You earn it based on like your kingdom kind of generating revenue. So battles do give you gold, but it's not kind of listed to you at the end of a battle. So there's a lot of like little departures from traditional RPG stuff that is happening there too, which I think is kind of neat, fascinating. What I gave the game a 9.5. Like I clearly was in love with it. It hit the highs that I was hoping for. It really nailed it, and I was flirting with giving it a 10. There's a couple little things that held it back for me. Why I didn't. I'll get into those later. But what I really love about the game as well is that the world kind of opens up as you play, and it's not this large open world where you're exploring. It's more like zones or kind of landmarks on a map, which I think is very much in keeping with the original game. They didn't try to change that element too much. Obviously, this is a full 3D remake. It's by the same team that did the Trials of Mana remake. So if you liked that game and you liked kind of what those developers were doing with it, I think you get a lot of that flavor here. But obviously with just a different backdrop, a less action-focused one. And this is the turn-based version. The game's entirely turn-based. The combat it's very solid turn-based combat, right? It has elements of other games like Final Fantasy X I referred to in my review, where it's got the order of the turns. You know exactly when your character is going to go. It'll show when enemies are preparing like a really serious attack, and your characters will also say like, "Oh, watch out!" Like they'll also like make some kind of exclamation to let you know that you need to maybe be defending or quickly take down an enemy before their super attack comes out. So that's kind of cool to see in the timeline.
That doesn't seem
You
very Kawazu-like.
no,
It seems like the opposite. It'd be like, oh, you just got your butt whipped,
there's not a
and then
lot.
laugh about it.
There's not. I think that maybe they've shoved him into a dark room, or a closet somewhere at Square Enix, where like
Maybe he's mellowed out in old age, like he's getting up there, So maybe he's
it
like,
could
you know
be.
what? I've been tormenting video game players for decades. Maybe I'll let them, give them a break now.
Square Enix like only agreed to remake this game if he had less input on it, or he had to like relent in terms of like difficulty and stuff like that. There is a class.
Open bar at the dev
That's right.
office.
That's exactly right. Yeah, yeah. Have another drink. No. The game has a difficulty mode that does harken back to the original releases of the game. So if you want that traditional Romancing Saga 2 experience, you can choose like the classic really really tough difficulty. I didn't choose that for my playthrough. I always kind of go with normal just to see like what's the developer intended normal path. But I do want to do a playthrough where you get to experience the original intended difficulty of the of Romancing SaGa 2. Um, you can switch difficulties at any time, which is nice. So we always kind of love that feature. But yeah, what I really love is the world opening up and you kind of seeing everything from this 3D perspective. Now, again, the characters, even all the characters just walking around look like Trials of Mana. You do get a lot of those vibes from this game, and I was a fan of Trials of Mana too. That was one that I've maybe a little bit higher on than other folks, but yeah, when as the world opens up, it's not kind of like going from one path to the next to the next. Like it's there is a sense of non-linearity to the game where you're just talking to people. You go to someone at an inn or a pub, or just talking to someone in town. Like maybe following one particular quest line that you have, but other ones will open up or join, or the world will start to populate with new sites to visit. And you might be working on a quest, and you maybe forget that on the path of that one quest, other landmarks in the world opened up, and you don't go back to them because you're finishing this other task and it takes you an hour or something like that. And then you come back to the world, you're like, oh, there's all these places I haven't gone before. Where do I want to start next? Like you're constantly like, what direction do I want to go in? And I love that kind of sense of discovery and exploration that this game has. It's not open world exploration. It's this map, and you're choosing kind of nodes and sections and sites, and it's just which thread do you want to tug on next. So I do love that element of it. It's not an overly long game. Like it's in the 30 to 40 range. It's not 60 plus, I don't think. I mean, obviously
That's a pretty nice number, 30,
if
40.
you want to, yeah, especially in a year filled with long RPGs, like 30 to 40 is kind of a sweet spot, even 25 or something. But um, yeah, I love that part of it. As when you start a new emperor, you also start a new team basically, and you unlock dozens of character classes. There's so many. I think there's like 25 or 30 or something like that. Maybe even 36. I didn't get all of them. I'm not even sure how to get all of them in like a single playthrough, if that's possible. I don't know. I recently learned that, and I had suspected this, but I didn't want to comment on it in my review because I wasn't totally sure. There's no New Game Plus. And I think there was a New Game Plus in the original releases. So that could turn people off. And I don't know how I feel about it yet either. But just kind of so people know that has changed. I think, and replaced by, yes, there's a post game after the credits. There is more to do. I'm kind of taking a little break. I will come back to that stuff. It does seem more challenging content. But the idea is, I would start another playthrough rather than carry everything through. I would start another game and just see how I play this one differently. Events kind of come and go, or maybe you get the chance to do something, and then some time passes or a generation skip occurs in the game, and then you don't get to do those things. So there is a sense of like, choose your own adventure, but be careful. You might miss out on something. You might not have to do a particular boss fight because you took one path over the other. Another kind of cool thing is that all the emperors have their own like kind of traits or qualities. Like, so choosing a male emperor will have implications, right? Choosing a female one might open up or close off some quests to you. There are situations where the character class of every emperor might matter. They might have to have a particular level of strength, or maybe be be a knight or be a wizard or something like that in order to access a particular quest. So your choices really do matter in this game, and so I love that part of it. At any time, if you wanted to, you could abdicate and just roll the dice again and choose a different emperor. And you don't just get to choose any character class you want. You get a group of 6. So you are kind of gambling or rolling the dice a little bit when that new generation or new emperor rises. It's not going to be a character class that you choose necessarily. You have a group of 6. You choose the one that you think is best, or maybe a new one that you haven't done before. And that's kind of how I did it. I always try like a different class. And as you open up new classes, your pool of emperors can also access some of those new classes too. So your emperor can be someone different. Um, you're also choosing, again, I said this, a different party every time you roll the dice. So one thing that can be at first frustrating, but then later you realize it's a good thing, is maybe you beat one of the seven. Okay, so it's Revenge of the Seven. There's seven kind of big bad bosses that you have to fight. When you beat one of them, generally that's when a time skip occurs, in addition to some other points in the story as well. And you what was I going to say? When you choose you choose your new party, you are kind of starting over from the beginning, right? Like maybe you have this really good party that you like. They have all these abilities, like they feel really strong. Like you're taking out like basic random encounter, not random encounters. You see the enemies in the overworld, but you're taking out basic enemies like really easily. You feel like maybe even the boss, wasn't a super big challenge because you're ready. You had a good composition. You'd level up. You kind of upgraded your equipment. All those kind of good things, and then a time skip occurs, like, oh shoot, like I really like the party, I was really attached to them, attached to that composition. um, what you realize is that because you carry over all of your stat gains and buffs and equipment and stuff like that, you're not, it may feel like you're starting over again, but you're not. Like you quickly get into that mode or that zone again with your new party, and they become like your new favorite. So you're constantly creating a party, I think, that can and will usually become like your new best party. And so that feels good, that you have these kind of highs and lows of like high of like, being having a really successful team and accomplishing a lot. And then if time skip occurs and you're starting a new generation, and you feel like kind of defeated by like, oh shoot, like I really like these guys, and then you make a new one, and they end up becoming very capable because they have the successes, the kind of all the bonuses and the growth of your previous team. And so the game feels kind of circular in a way of like, this cycle of death and rebirth kind of thing, like the phoenix rising. Your team is constantly rising from the ashes to become even stronger. There's a little bit of, Lord of the Rings, Gandalf. When Gandalf changes colors and he dies and he comes back, he's stronger, right? So you do kind of get that element here as well. David, did you end up playing this demo? I can't remember if you had shared impressions on it too, or if you had gone through the demo on your own.
Yeah, I probably didn't play the full demo. Like I went into the cave and defeated what was in it or whatever, and then I got out of the cave. But I think that was about as far as I went.
Okay, yeah. So it was about halfway through the demo, I think.
Yeah, I think I went back to the castle, and then there was like some dialogue between. I think the king was like going to send me somewhere, and then the other prince wasn't happy about it or something, and yeah, that's where I dropped off. But
Yeah, yeah. I think the demo does give a good sense of what the game is. Obviously, it grows and expands quite a bit more after the demo. The demo kind of ends with a fight against Kazinzi, I think, who's one of the seven. And I think that is a good sense of how the game progresses. But what really um, is compelling or engaging for me is just the fact that like you're constantly going to new towns, new areas, and they do look pretty different. They feel different. The music when you get to those new towns, I love the village theme. I think it's incredible. I believe I used like the original version in my video review, at least the second half of the review. And you can listen to the original themes or the new reorchestrated ones. You can change those at any time. There's like a jukebox things that opens up in one of your castle facilities at some point too. But every time I thought, I'm stuck or I don't know what to do, it was pretty easy to figure out, what the way forward was. Whether that was whether I'm stuck in terms of like my team composition, my power, and I need to, upgrade skills or upgrade my magic abilities. Maybe what you can do, you can unlock spells, not just through combat, but there's also a facility you can open up that allows you to create all these really powerful abilities. And you just pay money for them. You pay money for things, then you got to wait a little bit of time for your kind of researchers to complete their projects, and then you acquire these new things. So time is such a huge part of this game, but around it is just a lot of simple mechanics that I think work really well. Um, Money is kind of a funny resource in this game, where again you're not earning it directly after every combat. It goes straight to like your coffers in your castle, your kingdom. And then a lot of the chests that you find, like, yeah, they do give like crafting materials or potions or items or equipment, I should say. But a lot of chests you find give money, because money just has a lot of value in this game. And I like an RPG where money matters. I think it's fun to have a lot of money to spend, and then maybe things do cost a lot, like research projects, whether it's at the smithy or the magic shop, do cost a lot of money. So you have those tough choices of, I can't buy everything. What am I going to prioritize now? Which character in my team do I want to have like the best equipment, or which spell element am I going to spend more money on to develop? Whether that's fire or wind or whatever. Um, those parts are really compelling.
Yeah.
Again, not wanting to get into spoilers, but there are just a lot of cool moments with, even with side quests, not main stuff that you have to complete. There's just a lot of like optional content, kind of slightly off the beaten path, that if you take the time to explore it, or bring the right team to access it, I think you get really interesting story beat payoffs. And they are they are ones that, if folks who have played the original releases of this game, they will be familiar with those. And I am to an extent as well, but seeing them kind of played out in 3D with voice acting and all that stuff, it is still quite heartwarming and charming. So I did like that part as well.
Did you
But
play
yeah,
the original Saga too?
so I didn't play, obviously, like, there's a Famicom version or Super Famicom version that came out. I'd never played that, but I did play a remake, or maybe a remaster is a better way to call it. Came to Switch a long time ago. I want to say like 2017 or 2018. There was a Romancing Saga 2 re-release that did come out, and I played a little bit, and
Oh,
I
I think I have that on Steam.
yeah, you might. And
Yeah.
that one, it doesn't have like the kind of quality of life elements that this one does. It was just very, very hard to figure out how the lineage system worked and how everything worked. Like, that's one of my favorite parts about this remake, is it's much more transparent about how a Kuatsu Saga game actually works. It tells you there's not a lot that's hidden. Learning new abilities, stats going up, all of that stuff is given to you now. And so, yeah, and I know purists might not love that, but I think, for Saga to continue and to grow, you have to there has to be like a little bit of a paradigm shift. It can't just be inscrutable, inaccessible, figure it out on your own, look at a walkthrough, 6 months after the game comes out, that has painstakingly broken down how this game actually works mechanically.
Yeah.
I just can't be like that in 2024. There's too much competition for games. So I think this is the hopefully the beginning of getting a lot of new players on board with this series, maybe who have heard about it or heard good things and wanted to jump in somewhere. This is where you jump in. And then if you like it, go back. Go if you like this one, go back and play the original versions of these games, or other Saga games. And I think you'll have an appreciation for, maybe how far they've come now, or how being that kind of slave to tradition doesn't always work out. Like we've talked about with Dragon Quest, like that, yeah, they stick so close to this formula and it does work for them, but it also is alienating. And I think
Yeah.
Saga is getting to that point too of, you're pushing new players away by being beholden to what you were 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So yeah, I think that this is the step in the right direction they needed. It is a refresh for Saga. And I can't wait to see what's next, hopefully from this team or other teams that kind of just use Revenge of the Seven as a template.
Yeah, I like the idea of taking these like old Famicom, Super Famicom, or like anything like maybe even from like the PlayStation 1 or an
Yeah.
older, and saying like, okay, we have this technology where why don't we make the game that we wish we could have made back then, sort of attitude, where it's like let's build upon it and add to it. And I'm sure like in every instance maybe it's not going to be a home run, but it this game kind of shows that it can work. Like you can take the game, you can give it new graphics, and you can give it this fresh polish of like making it much more easy to figure out what's going on. And then all of a sudden, like what was a good game back then is a great game now, and it feels
Mm-hmm.
like there's like hundreds of games that they could easily go back to and just grab and be like, okay, let's make this into like a big production now, and it'll be fresh enough to where you're not just walking, doing the same thing. You're not just playing the exact same game. It'll be interesting to see because I'm pretty sure. I guess we'll find out with Dragon Quest 3
Mm-hmm.
HD if they make any changes or if they just stick to exactly the game it was with just graphical upgrades,
Well, I
and
mean,
then be
you
able to
can you can
compare it and see
play
like
you can play these original games. Like, you can play what it was before. There's not it's not being taken away from you, right? So like this is just another way to see these games, another way to approach them. And again, I think to build, you want to build if you want these series to last. If you're someone who's like, no, I only want to play the original game. Why did you change it? Like if you're someone like that, you're not going to get any more of those original versions. You're not going to get games like that if you don't bring new people into the fold, right?
yeah,
Companies have to make money on these games. Like it is a business, for better or for worse. And look, again, I can't see really the worst angle, because there is a way to play this game with the difficulty, like I said, of the original games. And if you want to play those original games, go back and play them. They are on Switch. They are on other platforms too. Like you said, you have it on Steam. Um, so those don't go away. And if you want more of that, if you want, I'm not saying that every Saga game from here on out is going to have, maybe the approachability elements of this one. But if you want more of these games, you want this series to continue to be a thing. If you want Kawazu to continue to be employed by Square Enix, you have to
yeah,
allow for remakes like this. And I think it's among the most successful remakes that we've seen. And I think remaking RPGs is just hard. I know that
yeah,
Final Fantasy
a lot of
VII,
work.
yeah, it is a lot of work, and we don't have a ton of great examples of it, because these are huge games, and they have a lot of I guess people have a lot of not just expectations, but there's just so much kind of on their shoulders. There's so much time that has passed between original release and remake, that I don't know. It's just so hard to do it right, I guess, or do it justice. And so, yeah, we don't see a ton of them, that and then ones that are successful. So I think this is one of those. I can't wait to hear more people play it. I hope that there's just, again, there's so many games this year. I think will be one that some people will have to end up waiting on. But yeah, hopefully there'll be a renewed discussion on it as we move into next year, where maybe there's price drops and stuff that just make it a little more palatable for folks. But yeah, it's a can't miss RPG. If you like turn based games, I think it's an absolute no brainer. But yeah, Romancing SaGa 2: Revenge of the Seven, two thumbs way up for me. Again, gave it a 9.5. What maybe kept it from being a 10 for me? Part of that is the performance on Switch is not the best. It's fine. It's not super detracting. But there are some hiccups. I did have some crashes. But I was thinking about it, like, no, this isn't the only thing holding me back from a 10. There's some late game stuff that I think is maybe a little frustrating. Just stuff around, yeah, kind of the late game, end game, even just maybe some transparency around the post game stuff too. But yeah, I hate to like talk negatively about this game. I don't feel negatively about it. It just didn't quite reach the level of a 10 for me, and so I ended up just giving it a 9.5. But
Fair enough. We'll just ostracize you after the fact, and
thank you,
and then
thank you. Once more
yeah.
people get to the game, you can tell me how wrong or right I was. Yeah,
Yeah.
please.
Well, it's on my Christmas list, so I'm hoping to get the Steam version, so I'll be able to comment on if the performance issues over there. But
Yeah, and
um,
that'll be a great opportunity for us to revisit it, or around after
yeah,
Christmas, after the holidays, when some more folks have picked it up or gotten it as a gift. We can dive into the full spoiler cast for sure.
yeah, yeah, sounds good. So for me, mostly been playing Metaphor. For the most part, it's a beefy game. It's, I guess, supposed to be about 60-ish hours. I'm around 40-ish, I guess, rated, but I would say. And it's funny because it's actually teasing like this final battle, and I'm like, yeah, if I'm at 40 and it's people are saying around 60, yeah, this is probably not the final battle, so we'll see what happens there. But last week we had, or last episode we had, the I did the Metaphor episode with or an early metaphor impressions with Paige, and it's funny because I was like a little bit negative on the game because it wasn't quite meeting expectations, and I'm sure we'll have another episode, so I'll leave any detailed conversation about that. But I'll just say that it seems like the disappointment is still just getting worse for me, where it's just not. I don't know. It's just, again, when you have an Atlas game and you have it made by the team that makes the Persona games, you expect a certain level of quality, and I feel like they're not quite hitting it. I guess it's better to even just wait to the end of the game too, just to see, maybe they stick the landing. I kind of feel like they're not gonna, but we'll see. We'll have some more. I'll have some more thoughts on that after we finish the game. I know Paige, I think, is a little bit ahead of me, so we're probably not too far off having that done. But I wanted to break it up a bit. We're recording just a few days after Halloween, so I'm not a huge you got to play a Halloween game. But this year I thought, oh, I've been following this game called Slay the Princess on Steam
Mhm.
for probably a year. Like I don't know when it came out, but it feels like I've been watching for sales forever. And every time a sale came on, it was at the same time something else was like an RPG was on sale. So I'd buy that instead and just leave this game on there. But what pushed me over the edge was that the developer just added new content to the game. So right now it's Slay the Princess, the Pristine Cut. So I guess they've added about 35% more content, which is kind of funny because the game itself is only a couple hours long. So I don't know. I guess I should have looked it up before I bought it, but I was kind of surprised at how short it was. Just because I didn't look up how long the game was first, and then to hear that it had 35% more content just made me feel like this was going to be like a 5 to 10 hour game. But it's one of those games where so I'll just kind of generally talk about it, and I won't spoil any specific details. But the premise of the game is that you're it's very simple. It's just like there's a cabin in the woods, and there's a princess that's locked in the cabin, and your goal is or there's a narrator that says like your goal or your objective is to slay the princess. So you walk into the cabin, and there's a door to the basement, and there's a knife on a table, and you decide, okay, what am I going to do? So there's different ways that the scenario can play out, but essentially you go down to see the princess in the basement, and something happens. Like
Mm.
based on whatever you decide, something can happen, and that's kind of like Act 1. And then Act 2 is depending. You go through the scenario again, but in the second act, your choices from the first act are impact what happens. So you go back up to see the princess again in a basement, and it's going to play it differently based on what happened in the first one. And then something happens again, and then there's kind of like a conclusion. And what happened, the whole point of the game is that those kind of like 3 acts or whatever, those 3 things are then looped 5 times, I believe. So you'll go through it once, you go through it again. I guess it depends, because like there's 5 scenarios that you have to go through to kind of trigger the end game, I guess. So maybe it might take longer if you're accidentally doing similar things, but if you go through this loop 5 times and you get 5 different outcomes, then it goes into this end game thing. And then I'm not sure, I've looked it up, and I think there's like somewhere between 5 and 7 different endings. I've seen 5 of the endings now because I saved in the end game, and I just went back and like did different things to see the different
Yeah,
endings.
yeah.
But I don't know, it's a little expensive for what it is. Like I got it on 20% off, and it was still $20. And it's nice. Like the voice acting is top notch. Like there's 2 voice actors that are there's like they're narrating the story, and they're also like your inner dialogue. Like there's this one voice, and then there's another voice that's the princess, and and so they both do excellent job, like the top tier voice acting for sure. The uh the story is a little vague, like
Hmm.
there's endings, but it's the very conceptual endings, I guess you'd say. Like it's not clear cut what's going on. It doesn't seem like there's a clear cut good ending, quote unquote. It just seems like there's different endings. Like there's kind of, I don't know. I guess depending on how you would see it, like there's a few that are like kind of good, and then there's, I don't know, like it's all kind of ambiguous, like very
Hmm.
gray. The actual true, like when you get into the end game endings. The the animation is all hand drawn, and it kind of has this parallax effect, which is kind of neat. So I don't know. I guess kind of my final take on the experience, because I don't want to get into too specifics, is the experience is neat. I guess I would put it. Like it's kind of neat. Like I don't know if it's $20 neat. Maybe like wait for a 50% sale, but you know, for a Halloween thing, like there is some horror aspects to it and that sort of thing. So it was kind of neat to play it on Halloween, but at the end of the day, it's like it was just kind of okay, I guess.
That's what
Like
I was gonna ask you about, like the horror elements of it. Like it seems to be built that way, but I typically don't see like horror games like reviewing so well. Like the Steam reviews are incredible, like 97%
yeah,
of over like 15,000. Like
I know,
it's
right? It's
quite
popular.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah, quite popular.
it's yeah. Like I mean, there's it's more. I don't want to say jump scare. I don't. It's kind of like suspenseful, I guess.
Okay.
Like um again, I don't want to get like things can get uh stressful, I guess, like
Okay.
uncomfortable, but and there is some light gore, like there is blood,
Yeah.
and there are some like, but again, it's like hand drawn animation, so it's not overly realistic. Like there is some. I'm trying to think of like something to compare it to, because like I've seen like played anime visual novel games where there's like scary moments.
Yeah. So I was thinking Doki Doki Literature Club. Did you play that?
Yes, yeah, okay,
Okay.
yeah, that's a good
Does
one.
that compare with this? Like that's kind of what I think about a little bit with your description and just looking at
Yeah,
some of the screenshots
yeah,
too.
I would say like there's moments where like it goes from like sweet and nice to I'm going to kill you or whatever, like
Yeah.
very quickly.
Yeah.
And there's like kind of uh like demon-esque like moments or whatever where things like turn on a dime, and there is a bit of gore and when things go real bad, but it's not like, it's not. I grew up in the '80s of like slasher movies and stuff. Like, there's no like Jason and Freddy's to style, like, oh,
Yeah.
like tearing arm. It's not that bad, but yeah, I would say it's more uh almost like in the Ring, like where it's like it's not overly gory, but you're scared by the stress of the situation, sort of thing.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Just maybe the potential for something to happen, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the threat of oh
Hmm.
my god, like what do I have to do here, not like to get out of this mess,
Hmm.
and be stressed about which option to pick. But it's very just like it's a visual novel. You just point and click at the options, like there'll be a narrator and there'll be an inner voice, and then they'll like kind of lay out the scenario, and then on the right is like a list of different things that you could do or say or whatever, and and then you kind of just go through it, and then again, like when the loop restarts, it's all the same options. You just would choose different options based on making things go a different way, and the game kind of leads you to that. It's like they basically like, you're doing it again, do some, it's not very they don't like throw it in your face like you need to do something different this time, but there's like heavy hints that you need to be experiencing the different ways that this could all play out, and then it once you've done that, then it kicks you into like, okay, well, here's the end phase.
Are there any like quick time events or any like action sequences where you have to
Nope.
race against a clock or a timer or anything like that?
Nope. Yeah,
No,
you have time to do things.
that's good.
So I got it on my PC because I was kind of hoping for. There's some of these types of like suspense horror games where they like fiddle with your computer and stuff,
Yes, yes.
and I didn't experience any of that. I guess there was some because I went back and was like reading on Reddit and stuff, and I guess there is somewhere where if you take too long, you'll be kicked out of the game.
Okay.
But
I'd
I
like to see
never,
that. I'd
yeah,
like to see that.
that never happened to me.
Okay.
I guess yeah, like if you wait too long in a certain, I guess there's one of the scenarios. It's like if you sit there and wait, then something will happen and you'll get kicked out of the game, or the game will close itself or whatever. Like I guess there's a couple things like that. The only thing that I came up with was I went to the title screen, and I don't remember if I was like looking at my phone or doing something else, but I was just sitting on the title screen for a while, and after like a minute there was like a jump scare.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
And so I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And especially when I wasn't really paying attention. It was kind of funny, but yeah, that's basically they didn't go all in that way.
Hmm.
I was actually just because I know like Toby Fox, I guess, just went on Blue Sky, and is so there's some Undertale discourse and stuff, and I had been reading that I guess the best way to play Undertale is on the PC because it does do stuff to your PC while you're playing and stuff. So now I'm like disappointed that I played it on Switch.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I think the first time I played Undertale might have been on PC, but and maybe some stuff happened. I don't recall because I the first time I got into that game, I wasn't super drawn in yet. It wasn't
Yeah.
until I played it. I did play it on console. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this is excellent. But yeah, that is kind of a fun thing when a PC release or a particular platform release does something where it's different or it's unexpected or kind of plays with your expectations in a way you had no idea that was going to happen. But that
Yeah.
is cool. That's cool to hear.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess that's my semi cool recommendation. I guess like it's a decent experience. Again, I think I would have preferred if it was a little less pricey, but uh, it's funny too because the developer for this has been. I guess you can buy this and 1,000 times resist in like a package. Like I guess there's like some kind of they must know
Mm,
each other or
that's
something.
cool.
So they've been promoting each other on Blue Sky, and they have this package where you can buy both games. And 1,000 times resist is definitely a high recommendation for playing. So if you're thinking about both games, it's probably worth getting that bundle. But yeah, that's definitely a game worth picking up.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah, I'd heard good things about Slay the Princess. I would like to check it out at some point. And it is on Switch as well.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I guess the last game for us, and not like a major segment here because I've only played a few hours, but I kind of departed a little bit from maybe what I had expected. I made a little bit of a sharp right turn. Instead of playing Metaphor, going back to Rebirth, which I really should do. It was actually the last game that was in my PS5. I took it out. I took it out to play Dragon Age: The Veilguard. And so I'd been kind of waiting for reviews to come out of the game just to see, was it a hit? Was it a miss? Was it somewhere in the middle? And it seems to be skewing a lot more towards hit. Um, IGN gave it a 9. I think RPG site gave it a 9.9, a 95 out of 100.
Oh, that high.
Yeah, it was RPG site or RPG fan. I always get those ones mixed up, but yeah, one of them gave it a 95, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like I only saw that today, and I was already started playing it, but it's hovering around like an 83 kind of Metacritic score. So I'm like, okay, so pretty good. And so I once that was kind of confirmed, and maybe even before I'd already pre-ordered it, just thinking like, okay, it's a BioWare game. I want to give them another chance. After you mentioned the last two BioWare games being, Anthem and Andromeda, both of which were largely a disappointment. Anthem in particular, and I played a fair bit of Anthem with some buddies, and we got to the end and all that stuff. I was just like, oh, that's it, like that's all that there is. but yeah, no, Dragon Age, the Veilguard, a long time coming. They'd been teasing this game for years and years. I was kind of surprised. It didn't shadow drop, but I can't believe it was coming out this year. Actually, I think it went from being a thing in development to, oh yeah, it's coming on October 31st. Like that happened kind of in a flash, and maybe that's me missing the story or the all the kind of breadcrumbs that were left about this game going to be coming out. It's possible just in a busy year with lots of games and lots of things going on personally that this was just one where the hype cycle or the marketing cycle kind of just left me behind a little bit or something. I don't know, but it's here now. I'm happy to be getting into it. And so, yeah, I'm about 3 to 4 hours in. I think the premise is that you play as a character named Rook. The character creator is fairly robust. You can choose your gender, choose one of three classes, like the prototypical Dragon Age classes of rogue, warrior, and mage. You can choose your background, and there's about 6 or 7 different backgrounds to choose. I chose the Grey Warden one, um, being a Dragon Age Origins fan and liking the Grey Wardens as a faction. I thought that was the way to go. Each origin story or faction kind of background gives you a benefit to your relationship with that group. So I guess when I at some point meet the Grey Wardens, I will be able to form a relationship or a bond with them sooner. I also get a buff to my damage against Darkspawn because the the Grey Wardens are kind of tasked with fighting back and keeping down the Darkspawn enemies in the Dragon Age universe. So you play as Rook. You meet some companions pretty early on, but you're continuing a story from Inquisition. There's a mage named Solus. He's an elf who is trying to, I guess, close the Fade. The Fade is, I think, I'm gonna get like Fade. I always get Fade and Veil confused, but he's trying to close this portal basically to like kind of a magical realm where demons are contained and stuff, and it's highly imbued with magic. And so I think he created it years and years ago, and now he's trying to close it. But um, the process of closing it is one that is destructive for the world. It is allowing demons to come out, and I think it's causing a kind of death and destruction and all these kind of crazy things to happen in the world outside of the Fade or the Veil. And so you're trying to stop him from doing this. Very early on in the, I guess, kind of prologue-y kind of chapters, you encounter Solus, and there's a familiar face, Varric, a dwarf from the previous two games. I think you meet him in Dragon Age 2, if I'm not mistaken, and then he was in Inquisition as well. And he kind of serves as the narrator of the game as well. But you meet Varric, and so you go on with this kind of makeshift party to stop Solus. And so I got to that part. You kind of temporarily stop him, and these I guess elven gods kind of come out of the portal, and so they become like the antagonists of I think they're going to be the antagonists of the game. You see Solus in a dream, and it tells you, oh, what have you done? You've kind of unlocked, opened up this even greater evil, and I was trying to fix things. And yeah, so you kind of created this mess, and now you have to go and clean it up. What I've noticed so far very early on is that I haven't encountered a world map really. I've encountered kind of zones or um, different cities and areas I can kind of maybe fast travel to a little bit, but the game has kind of kept me on this very linear path so far. There really haven't been side quests to speak of. There haven't been, larger maps where I'm like looking at where I want to go next. There's nothing like that yet. And I don't know if that's going to show up or not. If it doesn't, I'll be slightly disappointed, but I do like what I'm seeing so far. I think the gameplay is fun. The combat is quite fun. It's gone away a little bit from the strategic turn-based to more of a Final Fantasy VII remake style. There's action, there's dodging. You can kind of stop things and give commands to your two teammates to do abilities. Sometimes those abilities will combo and do like a really devastating amount of damage to an enemy. You have a mana meter that slowly builds up. You have your health meter and potions to refill it. Kind of standard Dragon Age stuff. But there's also a kind of a very extensive skill tree that I don't know how I'm possibly going to explore the whole thing in a playthrough, because I'm gaining levels very slowly, but there's tons of nodes to unlock. So I'm wondering where all those skill points are going to come from. When you get to level 20, you can unlock like a subclass or a specialization. And I did choose a mage, so I can choose from like what looks like a more poison focused one, or a more maybe summoning type one, maybe a more physical one. I'm not even sure. I haven't really looked into them yet. I'm so early, but um, yeah, I'm positive on my early hours of the game, but I'm also a little skeptical still of how it's going to live up to the Dragon Age name, which to me and to fans out there, I think that's the biggest question about this game, is like, how does it live up to, the highs of, to me, Dragon Age Origins is still the best game, and the most like, I guess the one that skews closest to like a CRPG, for those who liked those elements, the CRPG elements of it in particular. But what I really liked about Dragon Age Origins is just that, every town you would go to as you explore the map, I felt like, there were a lot of meaningful characters to meet, interesting side quests to go through, and so I haven't really encountered a ton of that yet. I do like, the kind of party members that I found so far. Only a few of them. They do seem interesting. You can tell that this is a 2024 game. It has um the obviousness to it. Like it's so obvious, when meters go up, or where to go next, or even the UI is very user friendly. It's not like hard to figure out what menu to look at or where to go to equip items and stuff like that. It's in some ways it's simplified, so I could see folks and even myself not loving that part when you make something too simple, maybe. um Especially if the world and the exploration is just kind of on rails a little bit. If there's less choice about where to go, how to get there. And I can't imagine that, because I've unlocked some fast travel points. I've seen doors that are not accessible to me yet, so I know I'll be coming back to areas. So I wonder, is that going to be like a Final Fantasy X, like end of the game, going back to areas you traveled to? But if the whole game is kind of that linear path like Final Fantasy X, I think I will be somewhat disappointed by that. So I like some parts that I've seen, but I do have a lot of question marks about how the Dragon Age the Veilguard is going to proceed. Um, Another kind of comment or impression I got yesterday was just the characters look kind of funny to me. Like it's this fantasy look that is not realistic. It's very kind of almost a little bit cartoony, or a little exaggerated. Like I see some of the characters smile, and I'm like, it actually looks like a horror film. That horror film, that Smile film that just came out, or there's a sequel
Yeah,
coming out for it. And I'm like, the smiles they almost look too big on some of the
the Uncanny
characters.
Valley.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
getting some of that with this game. The character creator was fine, but when I see them in cutscenes talking to one another, there's something about it that just is Slay the Princess horror esque to it almost.
yeah.
It's a little bit off putting, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to shake that. I preferred um, some of the older Dragon Age games where it was fantasy. Like it wasn't necessarily going for realism, but it wasn't. I'm almost getting Fable. I don't know if you've played any of the Fable games, David, but I'm getting a little bit of
Yeah,
Fable to this one. Fable has that kind of cartoony art style to it a little bit.
yeah.
It's not aiming for a ton of realism. I'm that was my very early impressions. I'm just like walking through like the first hour of the game and seeing the characters. I'm like, looks like Fable to me. Like I wonder if there's some took some inspiration from the Fable games, and I know we have a new Fable game coming soon too. But yeah, I was getting a little bit of that with the Veilguard. So
You're kind of saying all the things that I was worried about,
yeah, yeah,
because I'm the same. Like Origins was I loved Origins, and yeah, it was like borderline CRPG. Like it was as close as to one you could get in on a console, I would say.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and then when Dragon Age 2 came out, like I was mad. Like it was not
yeah.
what I
I
wanted.
know
Like
a lot of people were mad.
yeah. And then Inquisition kind of went back a bit. It was almost like a kind of like, well, we know everyone loves Origins, but we can't go that far CRPG, so here's a compromise or whatever. So
Yeah, yeah,
Inquisition I thought was a good step towards where it should have been.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, I'm reading Veilguard, and what it sounds like to me is almost like what Square Enix did with Final Fantasy 16, where it's like, oh, people don't want to play turn based anymore, so we're gonna make it an action RPG. We're gonna make it linear, and that's kind of what I've been reading. Like I was read up about this morning on, like I went on Reddit to kind of see impressions or whatever, and that's those are the things that were bothering people, that like
Mm-hmm.
that the story was too linear compared to what they would expect from Dragon Age, that the dialogue was too obvious, like it was just too um basically, like you said, it's the dialogue that you would expect in a 2024 game. Like it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
uh, there wasn't enough variations, like
Mm-hmm.
you can't go on like a jerk mode or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Like the
it was
characters kind of say
canned,
what you expect them to say, as
yeah,
opposed to like being surprised by some of your choices. Maybe. I will say that I've encountered a couple of situations where I had to make a choice, and I think some of the consequences either have been meaningful already or seem like they might be meaningful down the road. So, and that is one of the kind of BioWare staples that I was looking for, and so that I think it could be a big positive by the end of the
yeah,
game, is the fact that you get into situations where you're like you can choose A, B, or C, and it's like good, bad, or maybe unclear, gray area type. And so I did choose a gray area type for one of my choices. I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. I'm curious to see how that might pay off. And it does that thing of like which party members like agree with your choice and which ones don't, and it is funny to see, where their alignments kind of lie in terms of, morality. So
yeah,
I yeah, I think I'm right around kind of where I expected to be with the game, of like some things I like, some things I don't, some things I'm not sure. But I do want to see this through for a lot of reasons, and I want to talk more about it too, because I, just being someone who has thought and published, basically a thesis on Dragon Age Origins. This is a game, the series, so near and dear to my heart, that I want to see how this one pans out, and what that might say about the next Dragon Age game, what that might say about the next Mass Effect game, which we know is in development. I think we're going to get a lot of clues to those upcoming projects with the Veilguard here. So um, I'm definitely not, you know down on the game. Like I'm more like curious, I guess. I'm down on certain elements so far, but it's so early that I can't really make, any kind of major or final discuss impressions or opinions about
yeah.
it. So yeah, lots more to come on that, but I think I'm just kind of still cautiously optimistic about it.
Yeah, I've thought about, like I don't I'm too cautious to drop the $100 and whatever it costs for the game,
I
but
know, I
I've
know, it's
considered
pricey.
the EA Play it's under the EA Play Pro membership, where I think it's like $25 potentially, and you get to play all the EA games, and it's in there. And I've considered doing that, but then
Yeah.
like I don't know, I because
Do you need more games to play right now, David? Do you really need
no, I
another
don't.
pro
That's
member,
the other
another
thing, is like I
membership filled with
like
games?
like I'm gonna do that, but like I'm still finishing Metaphor. I got a backlog a mile long, and then Christmas is around the corner, where
Yeah.
like I typically get a bunch of games there too. So it's
It
like
could be
I
a
don't know.
good early December game for you, honestly. Like if
Yeah.
I'll probably get through it before then, and I could tell you like, hey, like there's enough in here for old Dragon Age fans. I think you'd get into it. But again, I think we can't go into these 2024 versions of games and expect exactly what things were before. It was just a different time, right? It has a
Oh, the
lot of it.
team must be completely different at
Of
this point
course, of
too.
course it
Like
is.
it
Yeah,
was like 14 years ago that
there might be
that
one or two folks from Bioware
yeah,
that are still there, maybe have some,
yeah,
control of what this game was going to be. But yeah, it's so different now, and I think just what AAA games look like in any genre in 2024 is so different now. There's just so many things that have become like common, I guess, and so you're seeing those things in kind of come into this genre, come into this series, and like you kind of just have to, like, I guess, roll with that a little bit, and I'm okay with that. Like I understand it if I don't always love it, but yeah, I think the game is doing like some kind of exploration things that are neat, some puzzle things that are neat, and it does still feel Dragon Age like. It's just how I'll get to the end. I'll say like how much of this feels like a Dragon Age game, or
Yeah.
where does it rank or stack up against the other three. So I'm excited to get to that point and just discover how I feel about it fully.
I almost want to replay Origins,
Dude,
like first.
I can't believe they haven't re-released it. Like they re-released like the Mass Effect trilogy, the
Yeah,
Legendary Edition, which was awesome. I've just been waiting for them to do the same thing for Dragon Age. Like, where's even
it's
bundle like
weird.
Dragon Age Origins and Awakening? That's enough. Like just
Yeah,
those two, like the first game and then the major expansion. You don't need to put two in there. Like we don't need two.
no, we don't
Fine,
need to.
it's fine, but like it's not horrible. But we don't need
Yeah,
to play it again. Like because it seems like Veilguard is doing some things that 2 did anyway, so you've already got that. But yeah, I'm eager to play more of this game. I'm excited to play more and
yeah,
hopefully get done a fair portion of it before Dragon Quest comes out. So
yeah.
yeah,
Well, definitely no shortage of things to play. Like we got the Dragon Quest 3 still coming up soon. I'm still forgetting half the games. I know Mario and Luigi Brothership comes out
yeah,
soon.
Fantasian's in December too. Yeah,
Oh yeah, and then there's almost. I feel like there's another game I'm forgetting that's
it's
coming
not
out.
an
That's pretty good.
RPG, but Metal Slug Tactics is coming out next week. I know some
Oh
people
yeah,
are interested in that. I'm interested in that. Yeah, we were. I was reminded we got a PR email about the game with some trailers or whatever. I'm like, oh, that or the announcement trailer of the date. I'm like, oh, it's
yeah.
another early November game. Great. Like that's
That one flew under the radar because I
I
remember when
know. Yeah.
hearing about it and thinking I wanted it. And now I don't remember even the last time I heard anything
It
about it.
showed up in some videos, like some directs or presentations, and then just kind of went dark for a while. And it's finally
Yeah,
coming out. I had no idea what the release date was even that it even was coming this year, but apparently it
yeah,
is. So yeah, I'll be eager to see more of that game for sure.
yeah. I'll have to throw that on. I'm just looking it up on Steam now to make sure I've got it on my wish list because like I don't even remember. Yeah, I
Yeah.
just assumed it was 2025 for some reason.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that it maybe went undated for a long time, or I don't even
November
know if it.
5th. It's
Yeah, oh,
coming out
yeah,
in like 3 days.
yeah. I told you, like it's really
Nope.
soon.
Now I've got the auto trailer.
You're excited about it. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds good on your phone too, so that's
I know.
the.
It won't stop.
I mean, I think I'm so curious to see that game world in a different genre. I think that that's a really cool departure for it to go from like the kind of shooting platform, shooting action
Shoot
kind
'em
of
up. Yeah.
basically a shoot 'em up game, yeah, arcade shoot 'em up to turn-based tactics game is really cool. So, but yeah, another game for another time for sure. Let us know here if you are playing any of the games we talked about, like Slay the Princess or the Veilguard. I'm super curious if anyone has picked that up. Again, we know time is limited, finances are limited. We have to choose our games very carefully these days because there's so many options. But yeah, we'll have more Dragon Age impressions as I get closer to the end of that game. Very very early on still, but more to share soon. Thanks everybody for joining us for this episode of The Thirsty Mage to hear some more thoughts on Romancing Saga 2, Revenge of the Seven, Slay the Princess, and a little bit on Dragon Age: The Veilguard. More to come, at least on two of those soon. When David's got a little bit more time to sink into them, or whether I need to convince him to play Dragon Age, we will see. But we are going to have episodes on Dragon Quest 3 coming up soon as well. Can't wait to play more of that game after playing just a tiny bit at PAX. Was definitely living up to the hype in that demo that I played. So hoping the same for the full game. But yeah, thanks everybody for listening. We will talk to you again soon on the Thirsty Mage. Bye for now.
Bye.